Hola, relatives. Welcome. Sending some healing light and love out to you from the light of this candle, the light from the star, polishing up our stardust, sending out some sage medicine, the smoke, to help cleanse and release any energies that you might be experiencing in your body, your mind, your spirit as you listen to this. I'm making this recording here, pre-recording it before the Live Love Now time of gathering tomorrow, Wednesday, because tomorrow I'll be driving with Andrea down to Santa Barbara. We're going down there to spend the rest of the month to kind of feel into the area. Younger daughter bought a house down there and inviting us to sell our place up here and build a live-in unit on their place, and then hopefully also be joined eventually with my older daughter and her family. So we're going down there tomorrow, and I'll be driving during the time of the Live Love Now gathering. So this sharing will be that you're listening to pre-recorded on Tuesday, which is today. So I'm going to share, well, let's just drop in here for a moment, actually. Always a good idea to just drop down into being present with our awareness in our bodies, grounded in Mother Earth, consciously taking in the breath of life down into our hearts, opening. Gratitude to you, Great Spirit, for the breath of life, the gifts of creation. Thank you for bringing us together here in this way. Thank you for our ancestors. Thank you for the ancestor spirits of the land that we live on. And thank you for the opportunity to use the technology of computers and cyberspace and Zoom to bring our minds and hearts and spirits together into a focus that helps open the Nayarika, the doorway to bring through medicine that can help all of us enrich our lives, connecting with the truth of who and what we are, sacred, worthy, luminous beings of love that is forgiving. And may our joining as you listen to this with your attention, the valuable gift of your attention, help open the doorway for all of our collective energy joining together to bring through more peace and kindness and healing and forgiveness and tenderness and love and joy and creativity into these challenging times that we're living in for fullest blossoming, greatest good, healing of the sacred hoop. May it be so. Oh, blessings on your life. Thank you for the blessings of your life. So I want to share a few Sufi stories with you that carry medicine to help us enlarge our perspective, our consciousness about what's going on in our lives, because it's so easy to get stuck in judgments from the conditioning of the first attention dreaming, from our domestication process, which traps us in the prison that we don't know that we're in. And these stories can help us see the king doesn't have any clothes and open up a connection to consciously co-creating a second attention dream with spirit, using the breath that comes in and asks the question, how do you want to use this fuel of breath? What kind of experience do you want to create for yourself? And so these Sufi stories have the potential to open us up to that second attention dreaming, that bigger mind, higher consciousness. So I'm going to read these stories in a moment, and I want to invite you, as you're listening to this, to let your eyes close. Take a deep breath and just let your eyelids close down over your eyes, because the sharing of the stories will prove more fruitful for your listening experience with your eyes closed. Watching me is not that entertaining or important to be doing. It's more important to be bringing awareness to your inner experience so that you can see and feel from the inside out your own deeper minds responding to the medicine of these Sufi stories. So just invite you to find a comfortable position. And in your looks within place, letting your body tell you how to be for a period of time most relaxed, comfortable, and peaceful. And so now I'll begin the first story, which is about Fatima the Spinner and the tent. Once, in a city in the furthest west, there lived a girl named Fatima. She was the daughter of a prosperous spinner. And one day her father said to her, "Daughter, we're going on a journey, for I have business in the islands of the Middle Sea. Perhaps you may find some handsome youth in a good situation whom you can take as your husband." They set off and traveled from island to island, the father doing his trading, while Fatima dreamed of the husband who might soon be hers. One day, on the way to Crete, a mighty storm blew up, and the ship unfortunately was wrecked on the shore. Fatima, only half conscious, was cast on the shore near Alexandria. Her father, so sad, was dead, and she was utterly destitute. She could only remember dimly her life, for the experience of the shipwreck and her exposure in the sea had utterly exhausted her, completely wiped her out. While she was wandering on the sands, a family of cloth makers found her, and although they were very poor, they took her into their humble home and taught her their craft. And thus it was that she made a second life for herself, and within a year or two she was happy and reconciled to her lot. But then one day, when she was on the seashore for some reason, a band of slave traders landed and captured her, along with other captors, swept them away. Although she bitterly lamented her lot, Fatima found no sympathy from the slavers, who took her to Istanbul and sold her as a slave. Her world had collapsed for a second time. Now it chanced that there were few buyers at the market. One of them was a man who was looking for slaves to work in his wood yard, where he made masts for ships. When he saw the dejection of the unfortunate Fatima, he decided to buy her, thinking that in this way, at least, he might be able to give her a slightly better life than if she were bought by someone else. So he had a kind heart. He took Fatima to his home, intending to make her a serving maid for his wife. When he arrived at the home, however, he found that he'd lost all his money in a cargo which had been captured by pirates. He couldn't afford any workers, so he, Fatima, and his wife were left alone to work at the heavy labor of making masts. Fatima was grateful to her employer for rescuing her, so she worked hard and so well that he gave her freedom, and she became his trusted helper. Thus it was that she became comparatively happy, now in her third career. One day he said to her, "Fatima, I want you to go with a cargo of ships' masts to Java as my agent, and be sure you sell them at a good profit." She set off, but when the ship was off the coast of China, a typhoon wrecked it, and Fatima found herself once again cast up on the seashore of a strange land. Once again she wept bitterly, for she felt that nothing in her life was working in accordance with expectations. Perhaps you can relate to that from your own life experience. I certainly can. Whenever things seemed to be going well, something came and destroyed all her hopes again and again and again. "Why is it," she cried out for the third time, Whenever I try to do something, it comes to grief. Why? Why does this keep happening to me? Why should so many unfortunate things happen over and over and over again? But there was no answer. So she picked herself up from the sand and started to walk inland. Now it so happened that nobody in China had ever heard of Fatima. Why would they? No one knew anything about her troubles. But there was a legend that a certain stranger, a woman, would one day arrive and that she would be able to make a tent for the emperor. And since there was as yet nobody in China who could make tents, everyone looked upon the fulfillment of this prediction with the liveliest anticipation. In order to make sure that this stranger, whenever she arrived, would not be missed, successive emperors of China had followed the custom of sending heralds once a year to all the towns and villages of the land, asking for any foreign woman to be produced at the court of the emperor. When Fatima stumbled into a town by the Chinese seashore, it was just such an occasion. The people spoke to her through an interpreter and explained that she would have to go see the emperor. "Lady," said the emperor, when Fatima was brought before him, "can you make a tent?" I think so," said Fatima. She asked for rope, but there was none to be had. So, remembering her time as a spinner, she collected flax and made ropes. Then she asked for a stout cloth, but the Chinese had none of that kind which she needed. So, drawing on her experience with the weavers of Alexandria, she made some stout tent cloth. Then she found that she needed tent poles, but there were none in China. So Fatima, remembering how she'd been trained by the wood fashioner of Istanbul, cunningly made some stout tent poles. When the poles were ready, she racked her brains for the memory of all the tents she had seen in all her travels. And she remembered, and she made a tent. When this wonder was revealed to the Emperor of China, he offered Fatima the fulfillment of any wish that she cared to name. She chose to settle in China, where she married a handsome prince, and where she remained in happiness, surrounded by her children and grandchildren until the end of her days. It was through these adventures that Fatima realized that what had appeared to be an unpleasant experience of suffering, of loss, of grief, at the time, over time, turned out to be an essential part of the making of her ultimate happiness. So just letting that story sink down into the depths of your being, and just noticing the gift of your awareness as it settles in, what it brings forth in you, and over time what this story brings through of Fatima and her successive hardships. And perhaps it can help us in the challenges and the hardships we face in our lives. The ego, so quick to step in with judgment, but yet on a deeper level, deeper currents working, deeper currents working, so that what looks like a terrible misfortune initially, triggering all the feelings of grief and loss and hurt and anger and bitterness and and pity and whatever human feelings come up with difficult situations of loss and the grief that ensues with loss of something important to us. And yet, deeper waters. There's an old song, beneath the waters, a strong undertow, and the surface don't show what the deep waters know. Beneath the waters, a strong undertow, and the surface don't show what the deep waters know. So perhaps this Sufi story can help deepen us in our faith and trust in those deeper waters. It can help us through difficult times with the understanding of the possibility in this universe of infinite possibilities that something good will come through our troubles, our difficulties, our challenges, if we stay present to work with them as best we can. And this offers a bridge to the second Sufi story that I wanted to share with you, which is called The Increasing of Necessity. You might say, in going down to Santa Barbara, I'm increasing my necessity to listen deeper to the feelings and intuition and thoughts that come up in being in Santa Barbara, to see if this is where Spirit wants to guide us to this next place of living, moving down there, or not. So it's vitally important for both Andrea and I to be really listening on the deepest level we can for the guidance about whether it's for our greatest good and the greatest good of our family to make this big move and pull up the roots of where we've been living for 50 years with friends and community and move down to Santa Barbara. If the guidance is to do so, I'll be coming up every couple of months to see and visit friends and do retreats and keep those connections going because they're so vitally a part of my life. So even if we do move physically, I'll be continuing to come up here and Andrea to visit friends. And right now, just a sense of curiosity to see what happens with the adventure of exploring the new. And so now the increasing of necessity. And the title of this Sufi story comes from a quote from a poem of Rumi. And in this poem, Rumi says, "New organs of perception come into being as a result of necessity." New organs of perception come into being as a result of necessity. We have this necessity with the pushing of the challenges, difficulties of climate change and the social unrest that's bringing to the fore the inequities of what's been there all along in shadow but not dealt with, of racism and prejudice and systems that privilege basically white males and oppress everyone else, basically. So these challenging times that we're in it's necessary for us to develop new organs of perception, to be able to see deeper for wisdom guidance about how to create responses to these challenges so that we can use the opportunity of being alive to do the best we can to actualize what's possible in this life, that each of us shows up as channels for healing, light, and love, and creative wisdom guidance from Spirit to be part of creating a win-win, healthy, just, equitable world for all. This is the possibility, the new vision of living, to live, love now, shining the starlight that we are. But we need new organs of perception. Here's the story about the increasing of necessity. The tyrannical ruler of Turkestan was listening to the tales of a dervish one evening when he thought of asking about Kadur. I'm not sure that's the right pronunciation of it, but it refers to a messenger from God who brings wisdom. Kadur, said the dervish, comes in response to need, sees his coat when he appears, and all knowledge is yours. Can this happen to anyone? Asked the king. Anyone capable, said the dervish. Who more capable than I, thought the king, and he proclaimed a proclamation. He who presents himself to me, the invisible Qadir, the great protector of men, him shall I enrich. A poor old man by the name of Bakhtiar Baba, hearing this, cried by the heralds, formed an idea, and he said to his wife, I have a plan. We shall soon be rich, but a little later I shall have to die. This does not matter, for our riches will leave you well provided for. And so Bakhtiar went before the king and told him that he would find Qadir within 40 days if the king would give him 1,000 pieces of gold. If you find Qadir, said the king, you shall have 10 times this 1,000 pieces of gold. But if you do not, you will die. Executed at this very spot as a warning to those who trifle with kings. Bakhtiar accepted the conditions. He returned home, gave the money to his wife as a provision for the rest of her life. The rest of the 40 days he spent in contemplation, preparing himself for the other life. On the 40th day he went before the king. Your Majesty, he said, your greed caused you to think that money would produce Qadir. But Qadir, as it is related, does not appear in response to something given from a position of greed. The king was furious. Wretch, you forfeited your life. Who are you to trifle with the aspirations of a king? Bakhtiar said, legend has it that any man may meet Qadir, but the meeting will be fruitful only insofar as that man's intentions are correct. Qadir, they say, would visit you to the extent and for the period that you were worth his while being visited. This is something over which neither you nor I have any control. Enough of this wrangling, said the king. It will not prolong your life. It only remains to ask the ministers assembled here for their advice upon the best way to put you to death. He turned to his first minister and said, how shall this man die? The first minister said, roast him alive as a warning. The second minister, speaking in order of precedence, said, dismember him limb from limb. The third minister said, provide him with the necessities of life instead of forcing him to cheat in order to provide for his family. While this discussion was going on, an ancient sage had walked into the assembly. As soon as the third minister had spoken, the ancient sage said, every man opines in accordance with his permanent hidden prejudices. What do you mean? Said the king. I mean that the first minister was originally a baker, so he speaks in terms of roasting. The second minister used to be a butcher, so he talks about dismemberment. The third minister, having made a study of statecraft, sees the origin of the matter we are discussing. Now note two things. First, that Qadir appears and serves each man in accordance with that man's ability to profit by his coming. Second, that this man Bakhtiar, who I name Baba in token of his sacrifices, was driven by despair to do what he did. He increased his necessity, and accordingly he made me appear to you. As they watched, the ancient sage melted before their eyes. Trying to do what Qadir directed, the king gave a permanent allowance to Bakhtiar. The first two ministers were dismissed, and the 1,000 pieces of gold were returned to the royal treasury by the grateful Bakhtiar Baba and his wife. How the king was able to see Qadir again and what transpired between them is in the story of the story of the story of the unseen world. And once again, just taking a few precious moments to let the medicine of the story sink into the deeper rooms of your being, sinking all the way down into the basement to reverberate in your own deeper mind, your deeper unconscious, and over time be interesting to see how these stories speak to you. Maybe, who knows, in this world of infinite possibilities, Qadir, the messenger from God, might come to you, bringing you wisdom that enriches your life, creating new organs of perception, to see deeper, to draw on deeper wells of wisdom, guidance, strength, creativity, deep inner peace, to enrich you in your life, your potential to be a source, a channel, a conduit for the light that this candle reminds us is at the essence of our being. Stardust brought to earth, stardust brought to birth, stardust brought to life, to shine, shine, shine. So another song here, and then I'm going to offer an exercise for you to help with those organs of perception, new organs of perception. The Sufi stories come to us from an old tradition, from elders, wisdom elders, old ones. And so this song, old ones, tell your ancient stories, old ones, sing your ancient songs, old ones, tell your ancient stories, so your wisdom can live on, so your wisdom can live on. Hayate, Amparios, the elders. Last night in the dreaming, I was with a group of people who were going through, who had been going through an apprenticeship process and were nearing completion. And in the dream, my assignment was to do a blessing for those people, and also to bless the elders going back through time who had passed on the ways of wisdom, of right relationship with the powers of life, to be able to live a good life and fulfill purpose that Spirit had in bringing you into this life. So the dreaming is a different way of perceiving, altered state of consciousness, and what comes through the dreams is shows us material in our shadow that in ordinary consciousness our ego defenses keep us from seeing. So they give us the opportunity to see what's going on a deeper level. And of course we don't have power to work with anything until we see it. We face it and we take ownership of, yes, this exists. That opens the door of opportunity to create a relationship with those forces, those energies that's skillful instead of unskillful, that leads to more pain and suffering. And then there's also guidance in the dreaming that can come from higher consciousness, from Qadir, from the messengers from God, from wisdom guidance for our lives. So I want to invite you to try out a exercise on your own when we get together next Wednesday, not this week's Wednesday, but the following week. I think it's May 12th, live. We can share what came through from this exercise, this exploration this experiment. And so what is the experiment? The next time you have a dream, watch your dreams tonight. And when you get up in the morning, to go out and be in nature and to sing a song, create a song as you're out there in nature that comes from the dream you had the night before. However that song comes through you, just go out and sing that song that somehow connects with the dream that you had the previous night. And what that does, that sends a message, like a telepathic message, out into the web of infinite connectedness to the unseen energy field from which everything comes from, to the spirits there. That says this person is paying attention to the inner world. This person is paying attention to what's going on beneath the threshold of sensory awareness in the deeper places. They value that. They're listening. And so, therefore, it motivates those spirit helpers to send you some guidance that's meaningful in helping address challenges and empower you in your life. So try it out. Pay attention to your dreams tonight.